Hey everybody, thanks so much for your patience. It will be rewarded in the next couple of weeks. We have some really good episodes coming out. I wanted to push one of those particular good episodes up, though, that we just recorded, just because it happens to be quite timely, and it's for a good cause. Rob Kutner, who writes for Conan, who used to write for The Daily Show, he just released an album online called It's Okay to Do Stuff, and it's an homage to Free to Be You and Me. It's great. And also, when you buy it, the proceeds go to charity. So really, it's very win-win. It's more than worth it. It's hilarious. It's got so many great, talented voices on it too, including Comedy on Vinyl regular James Urbaniak. Definitely worth listening to. It's hilarious. And we sat down. I sat down with Rob and we talked about his album. We talked quite a bit about Free to Be You and Me and just his comedy influences in general and kind of his progression through the world of comedy. It's great. It's wonderful to listen to, and I think you'll enjoy it. So definitely get his album and put a little money in the pockets of a worthy charity. And if you would, please watch my movie. It's online on YouTube for free. It's a feature-length film called Looking Forward. I've been working on it for 8 years, just finished it at the beginning of November. So, yeah, it would be nice to get a few more views on that. Just go to youtube.com/JKLAMM or just go to the website, which is jk2016.com, and watch the movie. Rate it, that is to say, like it. Add some nice comments. That'd be cool. And spread it around. It's our first feature film, my directorial debut. And, I'd like to get a few more people checking it out. Thank you guys so much for listening, and enjoy this episode. All right, everybody. Welcome to Comedy on Vinyl. This week I have Rob Kutner with me.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks.
What was awesome is, like, a couple weeks ago I was reading, probably Huffington Post, I think.
Probably.
Where I first read about you doing It's Okay to Do Stuff, which is great. And but we had literally 2 weeks before with Kevin Allison done Free to Be You and Me. So I thought it was perfect because I'd finally actually heard that album.
Well, our whole plan was just to sort of like synchronize up the Comedy on Vinyl schedule.
Just
to dovetail with whatever you were doing.
I appreciate that. It was very nice of you. So I'm assuming then that you listened to that as a kid, or at least heard it as a kid?
I think Obsessed would be a better...
Really?
Yeah.
So maybe even it's because Kevin Allison talked about it like ad nauseum because you just absolutely adored that thing.
Well, it's like I had a period when, my parents had, the what do they call it now? A 45? I forget what the terms are. A record.
Sure.
And I must have worn out the thing, and it was just so different from anything that kids listen to. And most things for kids are just like, either storybook or, quote unquote kids music.
Yeah.
Or just adult music, which is fine too. And this is just something that's like, adult level production values and intelligence and sophistication and comedy, entertainment value, but aimed at kids and with like all these kind of like, I wouldn't say counterintuitive, but like definitely like a strong sense of values that they're trying to impart. Even though as a kid you don't know what that is or what they're fighting against. There's definitely like a whole world that makes sense, a whole philosophy that's behind it, and like you kind of feel all that as a kid. And but it's just so entertaining that you just listen to it all over and over again. And I didn't really listen to it beyond then, but I have a 4-year-old daughter now, and so we've been playing it for her and stuff. And like it just like taps into all these sense memories. I think
I bet.
Just remember all these things.
That's amazing. What then made you want to do kind of an homage, almost parody then of it?
Well, I think part of it was just that I just saw the notice about the 40th anniversary, and it just struck me as first of all, A, I'm old, and B, as I was saying, like it has such a world all of its own that kind of thing is usually the best raw material, I think, for comedy in a way, and not necessarily like we did think of it as a parody originally, but in a way it is sort of a tribute in the sense that we kind of just like latch onto it, as opposed to a parody is something where you kind of like, I think you go in and try to turn something on its head.
Sure.
Or even satire, you're sort of trying to take it down, and I don't think that was the goal here. This is sort of like trying to like jump into that mindset and just do something that was way more twisted than they would kind of have done in their sort of earnest worldview.
Yeah. Is it entirely written exclusively by you, or did you co-write?
No, it was actually co-written by me and Joel Moss Levinson, who's this great singer-songwriter. And he composed all the music and performs in some of it as well, and orchestrated it. And then also his brother, Stephen Levinson, is also a writer and a director, and those two have been collaborators of mine on a lot of stuff, all kinds of stuff in the past, viral videos and sketch shows, and Joel's this kind of wonderkind with music. Like, I've had like crazy ideas in the past, and I've said, "What about doing so and so?" And he'll just like turn around an amazingly catchy tune.
That's awesome.
In like a day or two, and like, so if he likes it, he'll do it. So I said, "What do you think about?" We should do something that, at that time I said a parody of Free to Be You and Me, but with like completely wrong songs that couldn't make it into the album. He's like, I love it, let's do it. And so we just like jammed stuff back and forth until it made both of us laugh. And then we brought Steven in because he's kind of like the closer. Like, Steven like makes things actually happen and gets us on schedule, and then like fixes them so that they actually work comedically and all that. So, so it was just like this big kind of team effort, but it was also kind of like an intense, like 3-week process, I would say. Really, it was just very love-driven, energy-driven.
That's so cool. So, what was the full turnaround from the idea to actually having the thing?
Well, I have to go back through the paper trail, I guess. Yeah. But it really was like, it was coming up probably the 3rd week of November or something like that, and I just saw it and emailed it to him, and then like within a day or two, we were already like coming up with ideas for songs, and then I mean, I didn't really keep track, but it really was. I would say it was just under a month, and so
that's crazy. That's insane. Yeah. As a kid, did you listen to a lot of comedy, or are you more of a TV guy?
I didn't listen to so much as a kid. I wasn't like so hip to it, I think. I would say more like in my teenage years. Yeah. As I was introduced to like, George Carlin's oeuvre and the whole Monty Python thing, and Kids in the Hall. I was this kid who. As a child, when I was in kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade, I thought everything was hilarious. It was like The Matrix, where I could see the humor and everything that no one else did. And so I was always laughing at stuff that no one else was. And so I got thrown out in the hall a lot by the teachers. And so I always assumed the kids in the hall were just like that too, like these unable to function in polite society people. I don't know if you know this. It turns out I found out later on it was actually a term for the kids who would sell jokes to like vaudeville.
Really?
And like old school, Bob Hope comedy acts. They would stand out in the hall with the jokes.
Funny. I had never heard that.
Yeah, which is totally cool as well. But
that's amazing.
So Kids in the Hall, Monty Python, George Carlin, Dennis Miller's Off-White album, like those were things that I would just like commit to memory and just recite with my friends. When normal children, when cool children were like, singing rap lyrics or, whatever to each other. Or perhaps speaking to girls. That's what I was doing, was sort of imbibing all that stuff.
Yeah. Did you make friends over comedy, or was it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like one of my best friends in high school, it was over Carlin. Like we would just like drive out to the mall, play video games, and just like recite the whole side of AM, FM, and AM.
Oh my God. That's so good. Did that help you, I guess, going once you ended up? I mean, when you went to school, did you go just as a writer, or was there a specific concentration where you ended up being?
You mean college?
Yes, went to college. Sorry, yeah.
Well, I planned to major in neurochemistry at Klamm College, so it was. No, I actually didn't have any thought of comedy as a career or something like that. I was sort of more into politics and anthropology. I majored in anthropology and Russian studies, which I highly recommend as a springboard into the comic world.
I bet.
I just did what I was interested in, which I actually think, along the way, I think that's actually a good idea for someone pursuing the field, is not to necessarily concentrate in writing or communications. I think you should learn that by doing it. But I think, pursue what you're interested in, and that will sort of inform your writing. You can hear the rest of my master class on thelearningannex.com right after the wine tasting for singles seminar. Anyway, so I didn't know what I was going to do. I just picked out what I was interested in and took all kinds of classes. But what I found was that extracurricularly, everything I was doing was sort of comedy related. Like I ended up gravitating towards the humor magazine and ended up being the editor, and I helped form an improv troupe, and even worked for the student theater group, helping to write the musical, and even the marching band was kind of one of those goofy scramble bands. And so everything I did was comic. And one summer I was applying to be an intern for Mad Magazine.
Awesome.
And I did not get it, but while I was putting together the application, I was like, oh my God, I should just be doing this.
Yeah.
And so I sort of like started thinking about that as a career. And then my friend's brother got a job on The Simpsons, and suddenly it occurred to me I was a late bloomer, but like, oh, I guess someone does create that stuff, and that's actually a job.
Right.
And so then I started to turn my brain around at that point, I think.
That's crazy. Did the only reason I asked about college originally was did it help you, the fact that you made friends through comedy, did that help you in college at all? That you had this kind of probably encyclopedic knowledge of some of this stuff?
I don't think I bonded with people in the same way. I think in college, I don't think I found any kind of like, soulmates in the same way. But I think it did sort of create the baseline for the fact that suddenly like I had comedy in my DNA, and that's what I found myself doing. Yeah. I think just having like absorbed all that stuff, like maybe had reprogrammed the wiring or something.
Yeah. So that whole time though, were you writing the whole time anyway? Was it just something you did, or did you just have to start writing?
I always wrote things. Used to write more sort of serious short stories and that sort of thing, and I wrote for the school newspaper, and I was always writing one thing or another. And some kind of I was writing like little, even in junior high, I was like sort of doing knockoff Far Side cartoons, and passing them around when I should have been paying attention in class.
Sure.
And, and I would always do sort of goofy things like that, but I never took it seriously. So I mean, I guess you could say that I was always doing something like that, but I never sort of put that together with what my quote unquote job was going to be.
Right. When was the first time you sort of felt that all coming together as something that was going to start being a career for you? When did it?
Well, I think that failed Mad Magazine application, which anything that you fail at is really always so inspiring.
Yeah, yeah.
Reach for the ceiling, I always say. But I think just the process of doing that and thinking like, what if? Like, I just felt like, what if this was my job to think of things like that? Mm-hmm. Like, because I was like, you just like junior year of college, you're just starting to vaguely think about jobs or something like that.
Yeah.
Like careers, and like maybe it's just the summertime when you actually go back to your parents' house and you have to go work.
Yeah.
or else they're going to kick you out. I was just in that mind frame. And then my friend getting that job on The Simpsons, then they told us about this idea about a spec script, about writing a sample episode of a TV show. Mm-hmm. And then he and I started working on that and, did a really terrible Murphy Brown one. But, just like I think putting that together, like the idea of trading back and forth with someone, I think was like, you started to feel like, it was a craft that I could, I could aspire towards one day being not completely sucky at.
Yeah. Did you ever, just in personal experience, did you ever feel held back by having to learn the format, or did you not care? I just had
in a way that's it's sort of an empowering thing, because it's like there's so little you have control over when you're trying to like break into showbiz. Like there's so much that's arbitrary and that has to do with luck and people meeting the right people, or all those stuff that you can't do anything about. Like the one thing you can control are margins.
Yeah.
So like I know people who like really obsess over margins, and they were like early like fledgling internet groups devoted to like font sizes, and like people would like take rulers and measure like how far down like a Frasier script would begin Act 1 at. It was just so like this funny. Whole like
I think I remember seeing sites like that when I was trying to learn it too. So what then? I mean, I know you eventually launched off into the Daily Show, but what was all the in between?
Well, it was a long process. I made my way out to Los Angeles, and I was working. My first job was actually doing data entry for Steven Spielberg's Holocaust Foundation. So
really?
Again, another springboard.
Right.
And I rationalized that to myself as well. I'll be on the Universal Studios lot, so you never know.
Right.
Hey, Steven, while we're talking, we were in this trailer, and we were just like doing data entry from survivors.
Holy shit!
And the trailer was located right next to where the tour goes. Mm-hmm. The Universal Studios tour, and it happened to be like, I think because it was Spielberg, it was right near the Raiders of the Lost Ark thing. So like there's a Foley sound effect every day, like 400 times a day, of like machine gun fire going off. So like we're doing recounting these true life tales of
holy crap.
It's just like the worst possible arranged.
Wow.
So that lasted not very long, but I got a job as a production assistant on for a trailer house that was doing like Disney home video TV ads. Like are all 15-second, 30-second ads, and that was sort of like, to me, it still felt like that was someone in the industry, but basically I did that because I could do it for like about 35 hours a week and make enough to pay the rent, and also not be doing it all day long and using up all my brain. So I really was using that time to like try to write feature scripts, screenplays, and spec scripts. Wrote a ton of those things. And then like the third sort of thing on the side was that the same buddy that I was writing that terrible Murphy Brown script with, he had gotten a job as an assistant on Dennis Miller's HBO show, Dennis Miller Live. Mm-hmm. and he encouraged me to fax in monologue jokes because sometimes if they got stuck, they would look at a few things from outside faxers.
Yeah.
I started doing that. I was really, really bad at it, and it was really hard for me, but I did it, and it was a good exercise. I did it for a few years, and I never really got anything on the air, but I got some things that like Dennis liked, and that got some good attention. And then I moved on to a production job as an assistant at Unhappily Ever After, which was this really unfortunate sitcom on the then WB network. It was from the creators of Married with Children, but without the wit.
Right.
It was the one with the Bobcat Goldthwait bunny puppet, and actually a lot of great people are from it. Kevin Connolly from Entourage, and Jeff Pearson, who was on Dexter and was on 24, and Nikki Cox, and Bobcat, of course, a legend. So a lot of great people were on that show. I can't think of Justin Burfield, who's the older brother of Malcolm in the Middle. The Reese, the bullying sort of older brother we lived with. So a lot of really talented people. The writers were totally nice on that, but it was kind of a crazy show, but a good showbiz environment. My first day on the job, my first assignment was to go to a taxidermy shop to pick up a stuffed dead cat.
Oh my God.
So it's like, welcome to showbiz.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So that was good. So I did that for the last season of the show, and in the meantime I was faxing these jokes in, I was trying to work on my own scripts and all that, on this stuff. And then there was an opening for a writer's assistant on the Dennis Miller Show when my friend got promoted, and I'd had some production experience, and they saw that my jokes had some potential. So they interviewed me for that job, so I got that job. So I was an assistant on Dennis Miller's show, and a writer's assistant is sometimes like kind of an apprentice job where you're sort of helping the writers, but they're kind of trying to see if you could possibly make it as a writer yourself. So I was turning a lot of jokes on top of being kind of the secretary, like anonymously, and I started to get them on the air. I didn't get any credit or or money for that, but I started to get better at pitching, and like when the room would come to a screeching halt, I started to grow some extra balls and pitch things to Dennis Miller, which is
Jesus.
I don't even know how I did it now. I look back at it, but it's just because I had to. I was so hungry to do it.
Right.
And I got better at it, and he started to notice. And then when the last year of the show, when they were just about to get canceled, they got one last season, and one of the senior writers left, and so he promoted me to writer, and that was like, wow, right under the wire. I got that ready, and this is after like 5 years of pounding the pavement. So. So it wasn't like the screenplay or the sitcom job I'd sort of dreamed of when I moved out here, but it was like the other thing I was trying. And after that, I met someone on that show who was a former Onion guy who knew people at The Daily Show, and they had a vacancy because someone had left, and he couldn't move to New York, but I could. So I applied for that. He introduced me to them. I did a lot of submissions for them, like sample Daily Show material, and finally got that job. I thought I was just going to try it for 6 months because my wife is in the industry, and she, her jobs were mostly in LA, so it was hard to we'd have to be bi-coastal, so it was going to be hard to do that. So I thought I'll try it for 6 months. This is like 2002, and suddenly the show kind of gets the media's attention. I think in that era, starts winning Emmys, and it became a 6-year job because I was like, I can't leave this show. This is great for my career. So, I'm really glad that it took a different path than I planned on because it was a good path. Yeah. And then I was sort of ready to move back to LA, and I saw that Conan was moving back here, and I'd met some of the writers during the writers' strike when we were all kind of walking around in the snow in New York together, and I sort of harassed Mike Sweeney, the head writer, for a long period of time until they finally had one more shot at a monologue position. So ironically, the thing that I had been really struggled with years ago was what I landed a job doing. So I got out here just in time to sort of pilot that show into the grave, 7 months after. I'm the Black Widow of the last year of the Unhappily Ever After, the last year of Dennis Miller.
The Daily Show's still going strong. You're fine.
Yeah, but that's because I left.
Okay,
had I
stayed. That was going to be a question of mine. Was what was it like? I guess switching coasts like that, but it seems like it was best for you you knew you were going to come back at some point. I guess.
Yeah, that was the goal. I like there's a lot of opportunities out here. I like New York, but it's hard to live there. We had a kid, we had a baby. It's hard to raise a kid there. It's expensive, and Daily Show is a great experience, but it's kind of grinding in a way. Just watching that much Fox News, when you don't have to, is
I wondered about that. Yeah, I think that would kill me. It would be so. How is it for you then, switching from what seems like a very different type of humor to that from the Daily Show to writing strictly monologue stuff?
It is different. Sometimes I miss getting to like really like sink your teeth into political stuff, which I really care about, very passionate about that. I miss that. It's also a relief not to have to kind of make that my problem, that we can do, Lindsay Lohan jokes.
Yeah.
Finally, someone gets to do Lindsay Lohan jokes. But I would say like the Daily Show was all about depth. Like you pick a couple of things to really focus in on, and this show is more about breadth. Yeah. So it's nice to kind of just switch that up and just like, you can sort of take on anything you want, and just, Conan is smart like the Daily Show, but also just sort of sillier too.
Of course, right.
You can unhinge that kind of right brain thing.
Is there, out of curiosity, from an observer standpoint, I can see what's changed. We'll get back to the album, I'm sorry, but I'm just fascinated. What's changed for you as a writer going from The Tonight Show to this show?
Besides not having employment suddenly? And
right,
having employment?
Yeah.
That's good. I think it's been sort of, freeing in a way. I think The Tonight Show was an interesting experiment, and I think maybe it wasn't the best fit for what Conan does.
Right.
And it was very unfortunate and for everyone.
Of course.
So it was not a great experience, but it was kind of cool to see like the way that the fans responded. Like we had such an outpouring of love that I think Conan had not been aware of before. That was really a great thing. So it felt a little straitjacketed. Like it was a little bit more conservative, and I think Conan sort of felt like he had to touch on all the political topics of the day in a way that he doesn't really like to do because he likes to stay kind of apolitical.
Right.
And I think here there's sort of a freedom to kind of just, TBS, really wanted Conan, and they just let him do whatever he wants, which is great. Like I don't think they say anything. As we learned from Bill Carter's book, like NBC was sort of trying all kinds of things to make Conan do, and you don't make Conan do what's not Conan. Like,
I can't.
He does what he does, and and if you try to straitjacket that, then it'll just make it more crazy.
Right.
Practically.
That seems to be what changed. I've talked about it before. Like, I'm a huge fan of his and of all the shows. As a kid, I completely did not get late night when it first came on because I was just dumb.
Right.
And then eventually when I was like, holy shit, he's doing what I would do if I had a TV, if I had a program to make things, and I feel like that's there's something very freeing about that. And then to come back to that now, and I guess cable's the best place to do that, though.
Yeah, for sure.
It would be nice. I hope they I hope there are more late night shows that kind of pick up the.
And one thing that's funny is that there's a whole intellectual property issue because NBC owned all these things like in the year 3000.
Yeah.
We've managed to wrest Triumph away from them because I don't know what they were going to do with Triumph except maybe have him solve SVU crimes or something like that. But basically, other than that, all those things belong to NBC. So like we kind of had to burn the whole shed down,
right, and
just start over, which is kind of like scary, but like a very freeing thing in a way.
I bet.
Like that's the best thing to do, I think, for a variety show. It's just like you have to like reinvent, the wheel.
Yeah. Is there? Shoot. So sorry. Give me a second. My brain was
no, the answer is no.
Off. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. You solved the problem. As far as what's the? I don't want to just kill you with questions about writing for the show, but the process of writing the monologue, is it simply is it writer's room or is it?
It's more individual, which Daily Show is more collaborative, which I liked, but I also just like sitting down and pounding it out myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then we meet up. We usually meet up to go over it, and we also meet to pitch ideas for the sketch part of the show as a group. But those guys who do that are just their brains are just much better disposed for that than what stuff will work like as a live sketch or a video. I've gotten some things on there that I've been proud of, but monologue writers, I just like to really like jokes. I just like to write them. It's like a factory assembly line in the way, like I come in the morning and we have these college interns who are like the sort of like harvester bees who like come in and they go through the headlines and they find premises and stuff. And I like to find my own too as well, and I just go through all kinds of news sources and just punch out a bunch of jokes, and he hates most of them, and then you just you pick up and you start over again from that, and you just kind of take that through the day. Yeah. So it's very like doing piecework or something like that in a way, but I really like it. I like to just like keep tapping into that part of my brain and just seeing what it comes up with next.
I don't know if I can imagine the incredibly thick skin you have to have been doing this for this long.
Well, I've also been married for 14 years, so like, you know.
Well, there you go. That makes sense. Let's go back a little bit to Free to Be You and Me and maybe other albums that you listened to when you were younger. Is there anything, we talked to a lot of people come on the show and they'll bring up albums that I might not relate to, like maybe an Adam Sandler album or something, which is a little too, it wasn't, I was listening to Carlin too when I was like, you know, at the age I should have been listening to Adam Sandler or whatever. Is there anything you look back on where you're like, oh shit, what was I thinking? Like listening to, like it only works for you as a 13-year-old kid, maybe, you know, because I know I've got those, but
yeah. You know, the thing is, I think my parents just didn't really have that many of those albums around the house. Like they were not really. They're very funny people. They have great sense of humor. They weren't really into comedy. They had sort of fairly cheesy musical tastes. Like there was a lot of Neil Diamond and John Denver.
Okay.
So maybe that sort of like that created the groundwater for my sense of irony or something like that, or my sensibility or something like that. They were very much like of the 70s, but I didn't feel like I had a lot of comedy influences, and I kind of had to go out and find that stuff myself.
Yeah. I always wonder about that too. Is some people will talk about comedy being something that you're born with. Some people will talk about something that you kind of learn and pick up or teach yourself. And I personally believe you can teach it to yourself. But I wonder what's your perspective.
Well, I think it's definitely both. I think there's something like definitely like a sense, like I was saying, the Matrix thing, where like you see funny things everywhere.
Of course, yeah.
But then like you have to really refine that, and then like how do you translate that into writing and all the different formats of writing that come up on TV or radio or on the stage. Like there's all that, the craft of like translating it to other people what you see as funny or some version of that. That's the part that you have to learn. But I think you have to have some kind of kernel of that.
Sure.
And it's funny, like a friend of mine who I'm still in touch with, I went to summer camp with, was like, he says, "Oh, you were always the funny guy." I was like, I was like when I was 11. Like I don't really. I mean, I imagine I always laughed, but I don't remember like being the funny guy.
Yeah,
per
you
se.
didn't identify that way.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a strong part of my identity or something. Maybe it just felt natural or something like that. Although he and I did put on for the talent show at camp. We did stage Monty Python's Argument Clinic.
Awesome.
Which was great.
Oh, that's good.
We staged that. It was a mostly Jewish camp, and we got howls. And then I was so emboldened by that I went back to my Presbyterian conservative Southern prep school and did try to do the talent show and did it entirely to crickets.
Shit.
Why don't these people just agree?
Right. Oh
why not reach some kind of sensible reconciliation?
Holy cow! Those are the balls that you were talking about earlier.
Well, I didn't know. I mean, if I'd known that, I might have tried it.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, I feel like at least knowing that it can work.
Early rejection is good for the soul, I guess.
For sure.
Yeah.
Does it help you? You know, considering yourself more of a joke writer, or at least enjoying being a joke writer more, did that help you writing this album? If only because you're not dealing with the visual, you're dealing with, you're dealing strictly with words.
Yeah, I do like to deal with words more. I feel more like, I'm already teaching my daughter like puns and wordplay and stuff like that. And so anything where you can play around with words, especially when like there's this sort of Sudoku puzzle of writing song lyrics where they have to rhyme and scan and change it up sometimes. And I haven't really got to do very much of that. Like, monologue jokes have a certain poetry or rhythm to them, I think. And Jon Stewart's and Dennis Miller's and Conan's are all different, so I had to learn those different kinds of feeling. But they also have a kind of very set feeling, and then song lyrics are kind of just a different way to do that, I think, which is just sort of like kind of joyous in a way, and especially when you have someone like Joel who can just like create the music that like amps that up. Like it just like takes the jokes and everything. It just takes it to this whole like electrifying level. So that's been really cool. It was also kind of fun to do a little bit more long form stuff like that.
Right.
Like to take a comic idea, like like on the album, like taking a really happy upbeat thing about divorce, and like having spelling out a whole like little scenario, like that, or Joel. We were just kicking around ideas for songs, just song titles, and Joel came up with. He just wrote a bunch of song titles, and he wrote "Friends of Friends." And I just immediately, I was thinking of that song from "Free to Be You and Me" about glad to have a friend like you. And,
yes.
Joe helps Jane, and they bake a pie and that sort of thing. I just immediately had this vision of a song about like all these people who only vaguely knew each other and couldn't remember each other's name, and
so good.
But just so happy and upbeat. Like so, it was just nice to have like. I guess the difference is with songs you get a tone.
Yeah.
And usually when you write for someone like a host, like the host sort of is the tone. Like
right.
Their voice is the tone, and it's their thing. But in this case, you get to kind of create your own, or we sort of camped under Free to Be You and Me's, which was fun because it's a very happy, upbeat tone.
Yeah.
And then make it kind of darker was a different experiment. This is like an I think probably like an 8 or 9 year old, 10 year
For
old
sure.
kind of thing, because it's
For
like
sure.
sort of when you've been gendered to death, and this is like
Right.
suddenly like,
Right.
hey, genders are not what you think they are, and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. I think my parents were pretty like progressive and open minded, and my mom was like, going to law school when I was old enough to observe that, and my dad helped make dinner and stuff like that. So I think they were pretty like, progressive in terms of egalitarianism. But at the same time, I think it helps me not kind of buy into all that kind of male macho stuff. I mean, I was already terrible at sports anyway. And,
Right.
And, I didn't really, I guess I didn't think it was okay to cry. It turns out it was.
Yep.
And I didn't go so far as having a doll, but I mean, it was just nice to sort of be exposed to that, like, because I think I've always had like a kind of like, I wouldn't say feminine side, but just sort of like an open side where I'm not particularly like in the masculine mold. I don't really like, sports or like tough guy stuff, that sort of thing. I've never been comfortable in that realm, so it was nice to feel that you could have other options.
How does that help you as a writer?
Well, I think it's good because like as a writer, you have to be able to adopt all different kinds of points of view. So like anything you're locked into is going to sort of restrict you. I mean, that can be good if it helps you like really have a point of view kind of, show or thing like that. But I think also like especially as a joke writer, when we're writing a broad variety of topics, like you kind of want to be able to like plug into different kinds of feelings that are not necessarily your own. So,
Yeah, and I mean, it enables you, I guess, to pick apart those things that you maybe don't relate to just as much as you might be able to pick yourself apart.
Yeah, you look at things more as like an outside observer. I think always helps.
Yeah. Do you at all? And some people do, some people don't. When I interview them, do you miss having albums that you can physically touch, or does it matter to you at all?
I really liked that as a kid.
Yeah.
I liked all the clunky apparatus of it. I liked that like this horrible. I mean, record players are just like the most like inefficient, like ungainly, like dropping the needle thing down on there. Like, where is it supposed to land?
Yeah.
It could damage the record. It could damage the needle. It probably will.
Right.
Usually the hinge is broken. Ours, even worse was ours was in this like dusty cabinets, and you had to like roll it out on a drawer. Like that, which was like creaky, and like everything was covered in dust. And it was kind of like. It was just this very strange, like kind of like throwback thing. Like, it felt almost Amish, like operating a record. And I kind of missed that in a way as well, like because at the same time it was a challenge. Like if you really like knew where your track was, which groove was yours, and you got it,
right.
It's like yes, I did the unnecessarily difficult thing. and feeling those records and like sliding them into the huge like sleeves, and even like the liner notes, like those huge copious liner notes. That was like a fun thing too, and. You like a CD, you can't really hold a jewel case in your hands in the same way. I mean, you can, but it's smaller, and it's kind of, it feels like something you're supposed to put on a shelf. And and like the way, like, these things are made of cardboard, like the sleeves, so like they always got rubbed off on the edges.
Right.
So like this is very like kind of homey feel to it that I definitely miss. And also, of course, my parents have them all lined up vertically, so like you can't really see the lettering to see which one is which. You get a couple of wrong guesses each time. So there's all these things that are just so...
That's great. I mean, that's the other thing is like I'm very bad at buying anything digitally, but I literally, the bonus to technology is I bought this thing on the way out of my house, on my phone, and got to listen to it on the way here. Listen to it 1.5 times, getting here.
Halfway through, you were in a horrible car crash.
Right, yeah. So I'm going to have some bad associations with this.
Yeah, I know.
I apologize. So my recommendation at the end is going to be a no. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
But it was, that's, it still kind of weirds me out that I'm just only going to have this on my phone.
It's only digital. That's what's weird about it for us, too. And like a lot of people I've like said, do you want to review it? And they're like, yeah, just send it this. I was like, well, I can't really send it. And we actually pressed a few of them because there was a couple of holdouts who demanded to have it in CD form.
Okay.
But it was like really nice to hold that CD in my hands.
I bet.
Yeah, it was just nice to see it, like, even that whole album cover that this great artist Andrew Lin designed as an homage to the Free to Be. And he even made it look scratchy. If you look at the album cover on the iTunes site, like it looks scratchy and rubbed out.
Oh, it's so good.
So just to hold that like in your hands, it's just like it feels more like you did something versus like digital thing could be like an email.
Yeah, Yeah, that's what I was going to ask because a lot of work, especially in comedy TV, is pretty ethereal. I feel like, especially daily comedy work.
Right.
That's just. It's gone. You did it, and you've got the credit, and you probably got a copy of what you wrote somewhere. But is that freeing in a way though, because you get to move past what you've already written and just develop?
It helps with the rejection thing. There's a plus and a minus to doing like a daily show. The plus is that if you don't do well one day, then you don't get any jokes on, or you have just a dry spell, or one day, or a week, or 2 years, or a decade, or not getting nothing on the air. You can always start again the next day. You can start fresh.
Sure.
The stakes attached to each show are less so than. But then the downside of that is, of course, yes, it's more fleeting. The topic matter. People won't get the jokes sometimes. And when I go back and look at my old jokes from the shows, I'm like, well, who will even remember that anymore? But so then sometimes you feel like you want to create something a little bit more lasting. I think this album was an attempt to do that. Mostly by being like a lamprey that attached ourselves to the side of a much greater work. That people was an actual enduring work. But we tried very hard not to really work any pop culture or specific current references.
Right. Yeah, I noticed that.
Which is a very temptation is there all the time to just make things about free to be Lindsay Lohan.
Right.
And I don't like to do that because I think when you want to create something, you want to be able to listen to it in 5 or 10 years, just like all the stuff I listen to. Even George Carlin's stuff, which was, some of his radio riffs were kind of their time. You could still sort of get the feeling of what he was playing off of, and the spirit of the times and that sort. And I think that's fine. Yeah. And I've also to plug myself a little harder. I've also written some books as well for that reason too, is to have something more tangible that can sort of stick around.
Yeah, let's talk about those so that we don't.
Oh well, if you insist, Jason. I certainly mustn't. But I'm a bit of an apocalypse nerd, so I have a print book called Apocalypse How, which is the first feel good guide to the apocalypse. So it's going to be the best thing for everyone, and I guess people are interested in that right now for some reason. Yeah. I'm hoping to sell a lot before December 21st.
That'd be nice.
I think the Mayans should do a one apocalypse a day calendar. I think it would sell much better than their current one.
It's true.
It's not selling much at all. Maybe a hunky fireman calendar, that would be good. Anyway, and then I have an ebook, which also goes back to the digital thing, which is a bunch of satirical vignettes about 35 different views of what the future could be.
Awesome.
And that was fun for me as well too, because also not tied into the current pop culture or news cycle.
Yeah.
But then it also makes me wonder, if the apocalypse happened, which, believe me, I do hope it happens.
Sure.
But all the stuff I've done will be on digital media, and if you don't have electricity or petrol that we have to fight Master Blaster to get, then no one will have any idea that I ever made anything. What is your skill?
That's that it helps though. For that specific reason, to be non-specific, it makes it a little more socially relevant. I feel like, for satire especially, to do an album like this or do a book that's, a guide to the apocalypse. Is there any specific satirists that inspire you, or is it just you?
I think it's just a pastiche of everything. I don't know if I can point to any particular, influence in this case. I think I got some of the feeling for the Apocalypse book from, working the Daily Show, where the sort of predominant mode is to take dreary things and turn them on their head and make them sort of ironically wonderful. I think that's probably the voice that I was operating from. But not applying it to the daily news, but just the worst possible thing you can imagine. And also the kind of motivational speaker, trend we have of everything in American, everything can be made great. You can turn everything into a plus. And then I think with the Futures book, it was more I think with that I was sort of I was inspired by the kind of Philip K. Dick, Ray Bradbury school of looking at sort of things that are currently around now and where they could lead to in the future, and how the stuff that we're still wrestling with nowadays, how that could still continue but in a different guise in the future. But I just look at things a little bit more comedically, I think, than they do.
Do you have a specific outlet for your political satire, or is that just
mostly Twitter? I would say is the best place for that right now. I've done a couple of videos that are kind of satirical PSAs. I did one for the healthcare debate, and I did one about the Citizens United decision and stuff like that. And so that's enabled me, and that's enabled me to kind of keep those kind of chops up and do it just on my own time.
Yeah.
But Twitter is good for that because Conan wants to reach as broad an audience as possible and not be too political in one way or another, although he's a little political but not that political, and this is I can kind of really let loose on Twitter and kind of preach to the choir of people who already agree with me anyway.
Right. What we normally do on the podcast about this time is we ask people to say, well, why should you listen to this album? So tell people why they should listen to your album, but also tell them why they ought to listen to Free to Be You and Me if you want to recommend it to people.
Well, I turn that around and say, Jason, why shouldn't you listen to this album?
That's a very good question.
All right. Well, there are two different answers. First of all, I would say you have to listen to Free to Be You and Me because I think it speaks to a whole generation. Some of it seems really obvious now, like this sort of idea that women could be airline pilots.
Right.
Like, what? A witch. That sort of stuff but that was pretty groundbreaking. For Marlo Thomas and her brood at that time, just to sort of open up the possibilities and also gender possibilities that men don't have to be quote unquote manly and women don't have to be quote unquote womanly, and women and men can be legitimate friends.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. I think that's really important. And I also think it's sort of important because some of it is still regressed in a way. I had this 4-year-old daughter, and we haven't consciously introduced her to girly things in any kind of fashion. Yeah. We've tried to steer away from that, but the culture is such there that she's coming home wanting to buy princesses and dress up in girly things. And, it's fine for her to do that. But
sure.
The Disney, I call it the Disney Princess Industrial Complex, because it's just so hammered into them.
Yeah.
I think there is a sort of relevance. And also boys have the superheroes and all that stuff. I think there's that stuff is still there. And I think that I think the album really holds up mostly, in that way. I don't think it's particularly dated. And also, as I said, it's just really wonderfully entertaining. It's just funny, and it has some of the most amazing talents across every genre of the 70s, musical, comedic, literary. Has Shel Silverstein poems, which are amazing, and it's just really sharp edged, and it's just really great. It's just very entertaining, and you and your kids will love it. Now our album is even better than that in every possible way. No, I mean I think our album is just I would dare to humbly say it's a kind of it's just kind of a lighter companion to that, because it just sort of takes the very earnest and well-meaning vibe of that, and it just sort of goes into a few darker corners, I think, than they did. And there's a couple places where we just riff off of something in that album just for fun, like the very famous Boy Meets Girl sketch with Mel Brooks and Marlo Thomas. We do a bunch of riffs on that with robots and transgendered boys and girls, which is just for fun. And then our songs that Joel wrote are just a lot of fun. And as I said, take that kind of satirical, making the dark into something light thing as well. So I think it's just a fun kind of reflection. I think it would be more fun if you listened to Free to Be You first. Yeah. I think you might sort of get it, and then you sort of get the album. But I think the album is also just sort of, you should not have to understand it to get the jokes either.
Definitely. Why don't you plug away? What kind of where can people find you? And what
find the album?
Find the album, and where can they find you on Twitter and all?
Oh, okay. So the album you can get on iTunes. This week it's at the top of the New and Noteworthy, which is very nice.
Awesome.
In iTunes Comedy. And we did it without even having a topless picture of Tig Notaro, which I was, I fought for that, but even though I lost. My next album for sure.
Sure.
So you can find it on iTunes. Amazon has it as well. I want to mention it's only $4, and all the proceeds are going to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, which was Marlo Thomas is a big proponent of that. That's awesome. Big beneficiary. So we did it for love, not for money. I think for $4 it's a great deal, and it's certainly for a good cause. And even if it twists children's minds, at least it will help children's actual health in some fashion. And also Rooftop Comedy, which is our record label. You can buy it there as well. And you can also listen to some samples as well for free on that site, including a song by Bare Naked Ladies, the former Bare Naked Ladies frontman Stephen Page, called Be Yourself Unless You're an Asshole. But so check that out, any of those places. You can follow me on Twitter at Apocalypse How. That's also the name of my book. If you go to at Apocalypse How, one word, it has in my whorish bio window, it has information on how to look at the actual book, the website for the book, and for my ebook about the future as well. So kind of all the information is there. Or you can go to robkutner.com. I couldn't get robkutner.gov for some reason.
That's odd.
But .com will do the trick. And I think if you look at any of those places, you'll find more than enough Kutner to satisfy you on a dark and cold night.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you for listening. Obviously, you rate us highly, do all that good stuff. And thanks for listening, and have a good thing.
Mommies and daddies make mistakes.
And sometimes those are you.
But it's okay
to say good day
and start with someone new.
'Cause divorce makes a family grow. Instead of just one house, there's 2 places to go.
The yelling stop. The presents never end. Divorce turns your parents into friends. You get to eat what you want and sleep in late.
Help daddy buy you off.
And mommy tart up for a date.
Wait, did you just say tart up?
I'm just saying you're 34.
At least I'm dating someone my own age. Unlike your yoga whore.
She happens to be a licensed instructor.
Yeah, I bet you she's mastered facing downward up all
Hey,
your jokes. Boys, it's just a fun new path. It's like a wedding backwards, so everyone should laugh. There's stepmothers, fathers,
like a fairy tale. Okay, I'm sorry. Can we go back to this? Have you ever actually tried talking to Moonflower?
I'm sorry, I'm too busy raising the kids, which is more than I can say for you.
Oh, you finally found something you can't say. Will someone alert the Vatican? There's been a miracle. Divorce makes the family grow.
I wish you were dead.
Comedy on Vinyl is a production of Stolen Dress Entertainment. It is produced by Mike Warden and is hosted and edited by Jason Klamm. Visit stolendress.com to listen to our other podcasts, read our blogs, read our tweets, watch our videos, and read our books. Please subscribe on iTunes, rate us highly, and write your reviews. You can follow us on Facebook.com/comedyonvinyl and Twitter @comedyonvinyl.